Okay, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the next in our series of webinars from the Tenant Farmers Association. And tonight we are focusing on the really important issue of farm health and safety. So just as people are beginning to gather, can I firstly say a really big thank you to Barclays, who are our sponsors for this evening and for the whole series of webinars that we have been running throughout this year and later into the year. You'll get a bit more information about our next webinar at the end of tonight's session. I should advise that we are recording the webinar tonight, and it will be available on our YouTube channel and via the TFA website, which is www.tfa.org.uk, so you can watch that, you can share it, and particularly given the topic we're dealing with tonight, it would be really good if we could see the webinar shared as widely as possible. We've got two speakers tonight who I will introduce shortly, and after the speakers have given their presentations, there will be a period of time for Q&A. Now, I'm aware that it's an important night, at least for the people of England and Denmark. And so we are hoping to finish pretty sharpish by 8 o'clock to allow you to get off for kickoff. But please do put in your questions in the Q&A, and we'll take as many of them as we can as the time allows. So just to set the scene a little bit before we introduce our speakers, recently the Tenant Farmers Association carried out a survey of its members, and what we found quite interestingly was that over half of those responding to our survey indicated that they didn't have a written health and safety policy for their farm. Over 60% had not attended an accredited training course in the past 3 years, and 60% had never contacted a farm safety audit in the last 2 years. But what was really good to see was half of those who responded said they wanted to be better informed when it came to health and safety and the regulations. And this is part of the process that we're putting in tonight to ensure that people are informed. And it is really important that we keep ourselves and our families and our workers safe on our farms. So without further ado, I would like to introduce you to tonight's first speaker. And I'm really pleased that we have Stephanie Barclay, who is the manager of the Farm Safety Partnership. Now, she is a fellow citizen of Ulster to me, although I am in one of the 6 counties. I was born in one of the 6 counties that's part of the United Kingdom. Stephanie hails from the beautiful county Donegal, which I have holidayed in. So she is our first speaker tonight. Stephanie's friends were either from the farming community or from the fisher community, which are equally dangerous industries. And in 2014, she moved to the Bards country in Stratford-upon-Avon, where she has developed and grown the Farm Safety Foundation, its education program, and its award-winning campaigns. She's a qualified mental health first aider, author of the little book of Minding Your Head, which I'm sure she'll tell us more about in her presentation, a member of the International Society of Agricultural Safety and Health, and she also represents the UK on safety culture and risk management in agriculture. So Stephanie, you're very welcome tonight as our first speaker. So if you would like to take yourself off mute, which I see you have done, then it's over to you. Thank you, Stephanie.
Thanks, George, and thanks very much for having me this evening. I know it's an evening that people probably would rather be doing something else, so I will hopefully make this relevant to you and you'll walk away knowing something. So basically, essentially, I am the manager of the Farm Safety Foundation. We are a registered charity. We're based, as George said, in Stratford-upon-Avon, but we cover the whole of the UK, because the UK and in fact Ireland has the poorest safety record of any occupation. And that's something that we need to change as an industry. We need to commit ourselves to it, and we need to do something to drive that forward, not just talk about it. Okay, so we were set up in 2014. We've grown to 3. It started off just me. You may not know Farm Safety Foundation, but you may have heard of Yellow Wellies. You may have heard of Farm Safety Week. You may have heard of Mind Your Head campaign. That's just what we do. In addition to that, we have an education program. So it concerns me when people say that they haven't been able to access training. We are delivering training to 15,000 young farmers across 41 different agricultural land-based colleges and universities across the UK and through the Young Farmers Club network. It's something we've developed. We've brought in virtual reality. We do it by webinar when we all had to work from home last year. So we're still doing it because those messages still need to get out there. Engagement is simply making friends. So we make friends with organisations like the Tenant Farmers Association, like IOSH, like the Health and Safety Executive, because we can't do it alone. We all share the same goal and we're not in competition. So let's all work together. Communication is using social media. You know, if we've got an audience that is a younger farmer, they're on Instagram, so are we. They're on Facebook, so are we. And we also use Twitter, YouTube, and of course our campaigns. And research is really important. We do a lot of research ourselves into the attitudes and behaviours of young farmers, how they want to learn, how they respond to what they're doing. And we can track that over the course of our existence to find out whether or not we are starting to make a change. The first video I'm going to show you here was from our Farm Safety Week in 2019. We do use actors to do our little hero film, which helps to grab people's attention. But sometimes you don't need farmers because many of us know or related to or are friends with somebody who's had a life-changing or unfortunately a member of their family has had a life-ending accident. It's all too real. We're all aware of it. So if you listen to these different stories, you'll see the different types of people that we're dealing with.
I remember going to the back of my car and getting out a light bulb to change the 500 watt halogen in the potato store, and then it went blank. I remember waking up in hospital and seeing my wife standing there. I now refer to myself as the Terminator, with a titanium head and a titanium spine, but I've been very lucky. And farm safety isn't about luck. It's about making sure that you are conscious of farm safety at all times and every job you do.
Harry was killed when he was unable to control the traction trailer he was driving on a downward section of road. An HSE investigation found that the trailer had poorly maintained brakes that didn't work. If farmers carried out routine maintenance checks on trailers, including their brakes, tyres and hydraulics, Harry would still be with us. That's why I'm campaigning for change.
Farming can be a lonely job, and when you have so much time on your own, you tend to overthink. I'm worried about my family, my girlfriend and my friends. I really believed I had to man up, be strong and get on with it. I ended up getting very lonely and experienced serious mental health issues. As a teenager I battled cancer and won, but my mental health battle was probably tougher. I've learnt that no matter how bad things have been in my life, things have always gotten better, but I have to ask for help.
Dad was a very experienced and qualified driver who'd been farming for many years. It was a freak accident while he was unstrapping a load of straw in his lorry. 4 Heston bales fell off and crushed him to death. It's human nature to think it won't happen to me, but my family are the example that it can, especially if farmers continue to take risks. There are things we can all do to stay safe so we can come home to the people we love every day.
We are real people.
These are real stories.
Let's make a real change.
For more information on Farm Safety Week and to read my story, visit yellowwellies.org or follow at yellowwelliesuk on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram.
These are people that have real stories. They've got real dangers. So we just need to start pushing that real change, because 500,000 people work in our industry in the UK. It accounts for 1.5% of the working population. But according to today's HSE workplace fatal injuries, 142 people lost their lives in workplaces in Great Britain this year, over the past year. 34 of them were agricultural workers. That's actually 24% of all deaths in the workplace. Now, the figures that we have up to date basically will tell us that 20 farm workers lost their lives last year. That will rise to 34 this year. There will be more in depth about ages, causes in the next couple of weeks when we do Farm Safety Week. But unfortunately, there were 2 children involved in it this year, and farming is the only industry where children continue to lose their lives. So last year, detailed causes, and by the way, these causes haven't changed over the last 60 years. The only new thing that has arrived is the all-terrain vehicle, the quad bike. Everything else has been the same thing that has killed our farmers day in, day out for the last 60 years. Why are we not waking up to that? A third of all of them were as a result of moving vehicles. 20% were falls from height. 19% were struck by an object. 10% were caused by livestock. This year, it's going to look like probably a third of all the fatal injuries were as a result of livestock, with 5 members of the public. And I know that's something we'll probably want to talk about later as well. More people using our land and visiting our land and how we can protect ourselves. We do need to address the issue of farm safety every single day. And we all can proactively start to make simple, small, and not expensive changes on the farm to make sure it's a safer working environment for every one of us. This doesn't. So why do we need it? Fact is, it's the law. It's a criminal law and it's civil law. A lot of people actually will know that it's the law to drive at 30 miles an hour in a built-up area. How many people keep to that 30 miles an hour? So let's all think about also the fact we have a moral obligation to farm safety. We do not want to be the reason that a member of our family, our friendship group, or indeed somebody that we work with loses their life or their limb when we could have done something to speak up and actually prevent it. And we do have an obligation to speak up and call out bad safety practices, because how bad would you feel if you've noticed an unguarded PTO and then somebody loses an arm the next day as a result of you not saying anything when you could have? You're going to have to deal with that yourself. But also there's a financial implication. There are fines. The HSE will charge you a fee for intervention, which is charged at £154 an hour. The HSE made £675,000 from fees for intervention in 2018 and 2019. You can be prosecuted. You've got lost time costs, overtime, agency, bad publicity. You don't want to be on the front cover of Farmers Weekly or Farmers Guardian. Then that really would ruin other people and recruitment abilities as well. And of course, if somebody gets damaged, your machine's going to be damaged, your equipment's going to be damaged, your property is as well. So these are the reasons we do need farm safety. Obviously, it appears under the Health and Safety at Work Act 1974, and everything goes back to that. It just means from an employee's point of view, you have a right. Your employer needs to give you a safe place to work, safe environment, building and systems, safe equipment, and also information, training and supervision, to be able to use that machinery and to use, to do those systems. But also each and every farm worker has a responsibility to take reasonable care of himself, to cooperate with the employer if it's safe and practicable to do so. That's the important thing, because you can say no if you feel a job is unsafe, and you should say no. Also, you can't interfere with safety arrangements. They're there for a reason, so just have faith. What it could cost the business if you don't do it: sickness payments, recruitment, training costs for getting new staff in, loss of output. If somebody's a key member and they're not there and they need to be replaced, they may not be as effective as the person that's not there. You may not be able to carry out weather critical work. And obviously you're under time constraints. All farmers are. There's damage again. the admin costs, possible insurance costs, legal costs, and of course, adverse publicity. And the worst thing as well, you know, not the worst thing, but also one of the big dangers is prosecution. What it could cost you. If you're the person that has the accident, you could have a life-changing injury, disability, a development of long-term ill health conditions. You may have a loss of an ability to work or a loss of earnings now and in the future. You probably will have poorer or more limited employment prospects. It will have an impact on your family, your friends, and your social life. You may be prosecuted yourself because you may be the victim, but because you haven't looked after your responsibilities under the Health and Safety at Work Act, you may be the one that's prosecuted. Also, you could have long-term mental health issues. So one of the things that we are saying in terms of getting to know, we have a lot of resources on our website on yellowwellies.org. We've got pages and advice pages on working with machinery, work at heights, working with slurry, working with livestock, children on farms. There's a lot of information on the site, and it would take way more than the time we've got to go through it. But some practical things that you could do is make sure these numbers are in your phone or these apps are in your phone. 105, overhead power lines. It is the national number. It means you don't need to know who provides the line and the energy across your area. They will know that. How do they know where you are? Get What 3 Words. It is a free app. The developers have basically taken the entire planet and divided it into 3 by 3 meters squared and given each one of them a unique address. So you phone 105 and say, I'm at the scene of an accident here, and it's to do with an overhead power line. My What 3 Words is pizza, dog, trampoline. Then they will basically go, okay, they will get the power grid and they will locate who owns it. They will shut it off. At that point, you can phone 999 and 112 as well to make sure that there's somebody coming to help. They can then decide whether or not that's going to be air ambulance or land ambulance. And when you're talking about a farm accident or a farm incident, you know, the time is of the essence, and it could be the difference between life or death. So I would really strongly advise you to have those in your phone somewhere. And actually, as somebody did mention, things like emergency plans and health and safety policies and people doing checklists, we actually have prepared some very simple resources on the website. We have a farm emergency plan. That plan is a 2-page, is an A4 2-side. It's got everything from the telephone number of your local vet, your local GP. You put your What 3 Words reference in it, your grid, if it's there, the names of your employees, their next of kin, people like that. It's there for easy reference if anything ever happens. Hope to God it never does and you never need it, but at least it's there. Keep it, fill it in, and keep it updated. And a farm safety checklist is basically that thing that George mentioned in the research that you did, was if you're walking around your farm, just checking a few things, whether or not buildings are safe, whether or not roofs are secure, whether or not there's a designated area for children. Is there good, adequate signage? Is the lighting work? It's just very simple checklist to get you going and get you in the habit of, you know, making sure that you're thinking of your farm as a business. So on saying that, this month is Farm Safety Week. We have a new slogan, which is Rethink Risk. We do them every day, lots of risk assessments. So why don't we do them on the farm? You know, if you make yourself a cup of tea in the morning and you lift it up to your mouth, chances are you're not going to drink it because it's too hot and it'll burn. That's a risk assessment. So why don't we take that attitude to work as well? So there's a lot of things that'll be coming out in that, which hopefully you'll be able to use and bring forward, and please share it, because we do all have an obligation. Because I do know the fact is that I lost 2 friends. As George said, I'm farmers and fishermen. I had a friend who lost 2 of her brothers in the one day by going to work. I know how it affects the family. I know how it affects the community. And I know how it affected the mental health of everybody that was involved in it, because it has a ripple effect. In terms of farming, you probably have heard a little bit more about mental health over the last couple of years than you have done before. We thought it was important because there are certain unique stressors that the farming industry faces that others don't. And it's important that we do start to look out for each other and look after each other.
Isolation and stress are just two of the reasons that high numbers of farmers experience depression and poor mental health. 4 out of 5 young farmers say this is the biggest hidden danger in the industry. The first step to improving your mental well-being can be as simple as talking to someone.
Hello?
To learn more about who to talk to and how to get support, visit yellowwellies.org or follow @YellowWelliesUK on Twitter.
All of our videos are available on our YouTube Yellow Wellies account, or on our Facebook or Twitter pages as well, so you can look at them at your leisure. So if we're looking at mental health and farm safety, there were 20 farm workers that died as a result of fatal incidents last year. There were 102 suicides registered in England and Wales in those working in farming and agricultural related trades. That's everybody from a farm worker to a farm foreman, right down to horticulturists and arboriculturists as well. Now, that is a crude indicator of poor mental health, but it is actually almost the last resort for some people, and it's something that we do need to be aware of. As I said, there's a unique set of stressors that face the industry: long hours, rural isolation, financial pressure, taking on extreme debt to be able to continue doing and improving what they're doing. In most cases, where the farmer works is where they live, which means that there's probably no way for him or her to actually escape it, the workload. Thinking about the signs and symptoms of somebody that may actually be struggling, we need to start looking out for each other, people that we haven't heard from for a while. Also recognizing these things in yourself as well, because a lot of the signs of somebody that is struggling with their mental health are so individual to them, and they're likely to hide them because they're worried about what somebody might think about them or say about them, or indeed something. And the research that we've done anecdotally has told us that people are worried about having their tenancy taken away from them. They're also worried about having firearms licenses revoked. So these are things that people will try and hide. Physical symptoms like being frequent headaches, suffering from minor illnesses are hard to actually get through. Things like the care of appearance, yes, you'll notice that. But more importantly, their behaviours will give you a better clue, whether or not they're irritable, aggressive, louder, just getting involved in challenging people where they wouldn't normally be so. An increased consumption of caffeine, alcohol, sedatives. Now, these are the worrying ones: the indecision, the inability to concentrate. In farming, that could have deadly consequences. Increased mistakes, taking on too much work. If you think about somebody that's working too many hours, farmers work 15, 16 hours days. So actually imagine somebody that's working even more than that and the consequences that can have. So what do? How do you start a conversation with somebody that actually might be struggling right now? This is a very, very deep topic, and it's not one that we can really sort of breeze over very quickly. But I would give you one piece of advice, is actually ask somebody, are they okay? Do you know that? Because how many times do we ask that? Every single day. Apparently you say, are you okay, to somebody probably about 17 times every day. But how many times do you wait for an answer? So actually, if you ask somebody, are they okay, and you don't get an answer, ask them again. I'm not going to get into that whole side of things, but we do have a book, The Little Book of Minding Your Head, as George mentioned earlier. It covers everything from how poor mental health is impacting the industry. What does it look like? What does it sound like? It's a couple of really good exercises on dealing with stress and stress management. Also, if somebody is actually having and voicing suicidal thoughts, there's an issue there. There's a very good and very simple guide to help somebody through that. It's a small publication. It's not written for a hugely technical audience. It's written for farmers, you know, and also really importantly, how do they guide somebody to the sources of support, because there's a lot of them out there. It's not about diagnosing somebody. None of us are qualified to do that, but we can give support. We don't have to be an expert to give somebody support and guide them to the fantastic rural support groups and charities that there are out there, like Rabbi, FCN, Addington Fund, people like that. So that's me finished, and I will hand over now to Rosalind, and I'll take some questions at the end if you want.
So yeah, thank you, Stephanie, for that really important and insightful piece. Some really stark messages there in what you had to tell us, and rightly so. I very much remember a call that I had from a TFA member a few years ago, very early in the morning, who very sadly had reversed over his child who was riding their bike behind the tractor, and the farmer didn't even know they were out of bed at the time, not even riding the bike, and he was in complete and utter shock and concern for his child. So yes, you're absolutely right that we should be focusing on those things. So before I introduce our next speaker, I stupidly didn't introduce myself at the beginning of the webinar, just in case you don't know who I am. My name is George Dunn. I am the Chief Executive of the Tenant Farmers Association, and you are very welcome to be on this webinar tonight looking at this really important issue of farm health and safety. There is the Q&A function. We already have a few questions through the Q&A function, which we'll pick up after Rosalind has spoken to us. Please put your questions in there if you've got anything you want to ask or anything that you want clarification about. So moving on now to Rosalind Klaas. Very pleased to have Rosalind with us this evening. She is the founder and managing director of the cloud-based risk management software platform called HNS Click. It's part of the GRP group. GRP is the affiliate insurers that the TFA work with to provide insurance solutions to our members for farm insurance, for vehicles, and for farm health and safety. So if you want to know more about getting a quote for your farm insurance, please let our membership coordinator, Kim Wigginton, know, and she can put you in touch with GRP. So HNS Click is part of the GRP group, and HNS Click offers small and medium-sized enterprises with online enterprise risk management, compliance, and training solutions. So I will leave you in the very capable hands of Rosalind for the next few minutes as she gives us her presentation about HNS Click. Thank you, Rosalind.
Thank you, George. And wow, Stephanie, you are really doing such a brilliant job. And so what we are doing is we are hoping to help Stephanie and sort of help her to mitigate all the injuries or the problems in the farming industries. What we are providing is, George, how do I move the slide? Okay. So what we are trying to do is we provide an online risk management and compliance services, and this is specially dedicated to the farming industry. So we know, all of us know that there are a statistic that show us that in 2019, 2020, 21 people were killed in the farming industry. And of course, 21 people too many. I mean, even for one, I mean, it causes so much heartache for the family. And Stephanie has mentioned that for the farmer themselves, there is the legal implication, there is the moral implication as well. And I always tell people that, you know, imagine you go to work in the morning and you couldn't get back to see your family, and somebody has to knock on the door and tell the family, I'm so sorry, you know, this particular person is not coming back. So there is a moral obligation, and of course financial, as Stephanie has mentioned. So our site actually is helping the farmers to mitigate all these risks that is in the farming industries. So I quickly tell you what we can offer, what Farm Risk can offer you. We offer altogether 5 modules, namely health and safety, and health and safety is a really big issue in the farming industry. But I will just quickly in the next slide show you what how we can help you. Human resources really is just when you're employing people, you just want to set your terms and conditions right. And we have the business continuity module. During the pandemic, obviously, it's quite important to have a plan. If you can't operate, what are you going to do? In driving risk module, we just manage the occupational road risk. So if you have anybody that works for you and who has to drive out and drive a vehicle for work, it's still your responsibility that the vehicle is a workplace, and you've got to make sure that that vehicle is safe for him to drive. So I'm not talking about farm vehicles, I'm talking about commercial vehicles. And we have a suite of e-learning, and like Stephanie is educating, this suite of e-learning will help you to educate your people as to how to handle risks. And so, for example, one of the modules we have is manual handling or working at height. So I quickly turn to the next, and I'll talk about these three hubs. The COVID-19 hub is as a result of the pandemic. This is the place where we are showing the, not just for the farming industry on the whole, all the businesses, you know, what happened and what is going on during this pandemic. And business reactivation toolkit is, we have stop start, we all locked down, we go back to work, and this is the place where we help business to say, how do you start your business again after being locked down for a few months? And of course, Brexit, you know, we have Brexit on the 1st of January, and I think it affects the farming industry as well. So this is the place where you can get all the information about Brexit and how to handle it. This is health and safety. I want to talk a bit more about health and safety, this module. In the health and safety, we have a section called the self-assessment. And this is quite important. This is a place where you benchmark where you are so that you can take the appropriate action to make yourself compliant, to mitigate the risks that you have. So we, in this section, it's divided into 4 key areas of risk. One of them is farm machinery safety. This is the place where you go in to see, or we talk about safe handling of farm equipment and vehicles. And before you start a job, what are the things that you have to look for? How to make sure that when you're handling a piece of equipment, it is safe. Then we have the next section called managing safety on farms. This is the place where a lot of injuries we talk about. The most common causes of death are actually, we all know, transport, being struck by moving vehicles, being struck by a moving or falling object. And I think Stephanie talked about that earlier on. Somebody who was killed by the falling bales and so on. And drowning is also one of the area that's been the causes of death. Somebody being trapped in confined spaces. Sometimes you could work in confined spaces, or being trapped by something collapsing or overturning. Or another area is contact with electricity. Sometimes you have overhead power lines and it falls and that could, and it says nearly 2/3 of which involves overhead power lines. Most common causes of non-fatal injuries are slip, trips, and falls. And the site show you how to mitigate all these risks. Being struck by moving, including flying or falling objects, falls from height. And I just mentioned our e-learning has working from heights, from machinery, containers, or gantries, and contact with machinery, being injured by an animal. So Stephanie showed us the statistic of how many percentage of these injuries are caused by animals, or like cows or bulls. And she's mentioning that this year, I think, or this year, the percentage is going to increase. So this is the area where you go to and we help you to mitigate this risk. And we show you how to give you the guidance as to how you can prevent all these accidents. And the third one is premises safety. We say acquired business, some farms has horses. So you look at fire hazards. We look at asbestos. We look at car park areas. And we look at dealing with waste and feed, tech and general storage rooms. And these are all areas that you've got to secure before you work in it. And then the last key risk area is the worker health issues. Yeah, the worker health issues, there are various issues here, such as if they handle harmful substances or they are exposed to dust, and how to handle all these things. So our site will help you or give you the guidance as to how to mitigate all these risks. So this is our health, and apart from that, I mean, we have all the risk assessment and reports. We have all the guidance documents that you could download. And it's very important before you start a job to risk assess and see, you know, what needs to be what needs to be mitigated first before you just send someone. For example, if you're sending someone out to work using ladders, you don't send somebody who has vertigo to go out and start climbing up the ladder and tag the roof or something like that, because if you got vertigo, the chances is when you go up the ladder, you might fall, and so you certainly it's going to hurt yourself. So these are the sort of risk assessment that you have to take before you send someone out to do a job. So this and like I said, we have all the guidance documents. We got all the risk assessment, whatever place you're going to work, all sorts of risk assessment we have on the site itself. We also have Ask the Expert. So Ask the Expert is like having a health and safety consultant by your side. When you have a issue, you can ask our expert as to how to, and our experts are all qualified and they will help you, guide you to a compliance. So this is our health and safety module. Like I said, I won't go because I don't think we have a lot of time in view of the fact that we want to finish early. The next slide just show you we have human resources module as well. And this is the module where it guides you when you're employing someone, it guides you to employment legislation to make sure that you do the right thing and so that you don't stand in front of the tribunal. Then we have a module called in human resources. It's a really good package because we call it from cradle to grave. So from the moment you employ somebody, there are things that you need to make sure that you have in place to the moment the person is leaving. So you have all the benefits and leave and so on and so forth. And then we have a module called business continuity. And this is the place where it helps you to actually understand your business and say that if certain part of your business cannot be operated due to, I mean, the example that we say is the pandemic and it applies to a lot of businesses, how are you going to get yourself up and running quite quickly before you lose the business? So this is a place we have a business continuity plan template where you can develop your own business continuity. And like I said, driving risk is actually occupational road risk management. So if you have somebody who drive out, I'm not talking about farm vehicles because that is covered under health and safety. I'm talking about somebody, one of your staff, maybe you needs to go and see somebody or needs to go and see, if you're selling to supermarket, needs to go and see the supermarket. He is actually effectively, or she is effectively driving for work. And the vehicle becomes a workplace. And this is the area where we help you to manage his vehicles and make sure that he has a vehicle that is safe, he's driving. And of course, you got all sorts of legislation that govern that road, occupational road risk. Then we have a suite of e-learning. We have 17 health and safety courses and in e-learning, in the e-learning module. And this is a very cost-effective solution to health and safety training. And hopefully we go some way to help Stephanie to perhaps put the training out to help the farmers to train their staff. And this is especially when you don't have time to send people out for training, e-learning is a real good solution because all they have to do is have a computer in front of them and do the training. And all the training are accredited, all our training are accredited by ROSPA, and I think everybody know who ROSPA is, CPD and National Occupational Standards. National Occupational Standards is a government standard governing the NVQ. So all these e-learning are actually up to NVQ levels that is accredited by the government. These are just quickly the courses that we have. So we have chemical safety, confined spaces, electricity. You know, I talked about overhead power lines earlier, and this is the course where it shows you how to mitigate that risk, and so on and so forth. We got slips, trips, and falls. And the next slide shows you we have three well-being courses. One of the courses is mental health awareness, which, you know, at the moment is very much at the forefront. And Stephanie was saying, you know, do we actually ask people, are you okay, and wait for an answer? So this mental health awareness is very much at the forefront. And this course will actually show you how to spot signs of mental health issues and so on. And of course, you know, we are all now working under tremendous stress, especially for people who have young family. They have to home train or homeschool their children and so on, and they have to work. So there's lots of stress. And these courses will also show the employer how to spot stress in your employees. And it's a responsibility actually of the employer. This is actually a legal responsibility for the employer to spot stress in the employee. And then another course we have is managing short-term absences. So these are the three well-being courses that we have. Just a quick note to say that, you know, in the Manslaughter and Homicide Act, the employer, and when I say the employer, I mean in the farming industry, I don't call it the farmer, is responsible. You can be prosecuted and you could be put in jail if you don't make sure that if you're put in front of the judges, can you convince them that you have done absolutely everything in your power to prevent the accident or to prevent death of your employee? So just bear in mind this Manslaughter and Homicide Act, and they do prosecute employers, and they do put employers in jail. So it's really, I always say that, you know, health and safety, sometimes it's not Einstein. It's just, you know, sitting down and just thinking, well, you know, look at the risk that you have before you send someone out to work.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed, Rosalind, for that introduction to health and safety. Click. Okay, so we've got a few minutes left before we let you go and enjoy tonight's game. And we're going to have a little bit of a Q&A. So if Stephanie could come back on camera and take herself off mute, that would be fabulous. We've had a handful of questions. Some of them are linked. So we'll start with an easy one, which has come in on the Q&A from Lee Priest, and I suspect I can direct this one to Rosalind directly, which is, does the TFA have any recommendations for companies who can advise on health and safety on farms, policy documents, requirements, and with assistance to put them together? And I'm sure, Rosalind, that you will say Health and Safety Click is the first place you should go to, and how do we access it?
Right, okay. Well, if anybody that is interested, if you or George, if you can coordinate, I can give them a login, and then they can get access to the site.
Okay, so what we'll do is we will make sure that our members have access to the login details. So look out on the insurance page of the TFA website for that information, and we'll make sure the Health and Safety Click information is included there for TFA members. Okay, thank you very much, Rosalind. Okay, so a couple of linked questions here, which we will put to Stephanie. So Christopher Renner, Stephanie, says that you're doing a great work in contacting and educating younger people in agriculture, but he was suggesting that the numbers suggested it's the older people who suffer more from accidents, and also members of the public walking through livestock on footpaths also are high up on the figures. So he wants to know is, as the average age of farmers rises and more of the public want to enjoy the land, how can we address this? And that's also echoed by Amanda in the Q&A, who said that people can sometimes be poorly educated, and they see somebody doing it and they think they can do it themselves. So how do we deal with the whole issue of age within the farming community, and also the public coming onto farms? So Stephanie, over to you.
Okay, so there's sort of two sides to that. First of all, in terms of the age, the Farm Safety Partnership, which is an organisation of about 40 different members, and I know TFA are involved in that, were set up to look after those older farmers, but there was nobody dealing with the next generation of farmers, and that's why we chose that as our remit. Nobody had ever actually contacted those people who were starting to make their journey into agriculture. We thought that we could get them at a very early stage where they're like sponges wanting to learn everything, and they could come in and start to drive those good behaviours. So we work very closely with the Farm Safety Partnership, sharing what we're doing, telling them that they need to get the message out there to older farmers to expect questions and to expect somebody, you know, to push back if they've been asked to do something that's unsafe, and actually understand that they better have a really good answer for it. But also, when we're training, we're getting them to do it in a very real and respectful way, and not just a bunch of cheeky kids coming out of school going, I learned at school to do this. So there are different ways that they're approaching it. I would love to get my hands on the older farmers, so to speak, but we are a really small charity. We've got such limited resources, and we only have one funder at the moment. So if we had more money, we could do more things. I keep going back to them for more money, but you know, you can't go back to one organisation who've been very generous to you and continually ask them. So we're looking for various sources of fundraising and income, really, and seeing how we can help to develop. I did a talk yesterday for a group of farmers in Oxfordshire, the Crow Marsh Battle Farms, and they had a lot of their local farms join them. So we did a bit of training there, which was great. Some really fantastic discussions there. So it's just continuing those conversations, really. And it's thinking of innovative ways of doing it, and that you're not preaching to somebody that knows what they're doing. What we're trying to do is give those gentle reminders and remind them that it is their health and it is their safety. But also, when you come in to talk to members of the public, you're absolutely right, Amanda, and you're absolutely right that, you know, public safety should always be part of an overall health and safety policy, whether it's written down or not. You know, if you've got people passing through your land, you have to minimise any risk of injury to them. You have a legal duty of care to consider the health and safety of members of the public using any public rights of way through your fields. Now, Health and Safety Executive have got guidance. One of them is called Cattle and Public Access in England and Wales, and also Cattle and Public Access in Scotland, advice for farmers, landowners and other livestock keepers. What we're doing as part of Farm Safety Week this year is there will be a full focus on that, given that 5 members of the public lost their lives over the past year as a result of coming into contact with cattle and with livestock. So what we're going to do is a 2-pronged approach. We're going to contact the general broadcast media to let them know that that walkers need to actually educate themselves about their responsibilities, because it's not just farmland, it's somebody's business, it's somebody's livelihood. They also need to be aware of the dangers of coming into contact with cattle, with getting into areas with newly calved cows, all of that kind of stuff, but also understanding the countryside code, which is very simple. So there will be a lot of sharing of that information. We're also going to be basically helping farmers by giving them a bit of a tick list of how they can help public understand their responsibilities. So whether or not it's, you know, if the cattle are in a field with no segregation, make sure that feeding points and water encourage the herd away from the route. So those sort of gentle tips there that you can just remind yourself of, and also remind yourself that there's free signage available to download from the NFU website, you know, that can basically let people know about what that land is being used for at that moment in time. And there's some really nice little stories from farmers that have said that they've created a sign that said, "This is Daisy and Mabel, and they've just had babies, and please keep away from them because, you know, you don't want a ton of beef, you know, chasing you." But also, as well as that, being careful when they're walking dogs, that they don't, you know, that they do lift up the dog poo, because it could cause a cow to abort, the parasites that are contained in that. So letting people know a little bit more and giving almost the animals a personality so that, you know, it speaks to them. But it's just, that's the type of thing that we're looking to do this Farm Safety Week. So yeah, please get involved, and you know, the blogs and the top tips will be there on the website and on social media as well.
Thanks, Stephanie. That's great. And Amanda's also added that she thinks that the cost of doing a health and safety audit should be subsidised. Maybe that's something we need to be taking up with the government in terms of its public payments for public goods. If we're saving lives through these health and safety audits, then maybe there is a role for government to assist with those. I've got a technical question for Rosalind. Maybe you can think about this one, Rosalind. The question is, if you're employing a third-party contractor on the farm to carry out some work, like silaging, whose responsibility is it to ensure the safety of their workers who are often self-employed? So you're on mute at the moment, Rosalind, so if you come off mute, could you give us your thoughts on that?
Yes. Well, before you hire a subcontractor, we have a farmer document safety requirements. So you need to have this safety requirement of your contractor. You got to ask them whether they got the right insurance before they even start the job, whether they have the right training for their staff before they start the job, and whether the people that are coming to do the job or the people they are hiring to do the job are competent. At the end of the day, the responsibility is still back to the farmer, and because he has got to ensure that his subcontractor or his contractor has all these things before they start the thing, so that, you know, so the responsibility is actually with the farmer who is hiring, and he's got to make sure he goes through all these safety requirements before he let them start the job.
And equally, a question's come in about because obviously we're an organisation that represents tenant farmers. If the landlord of the tenant farmer organises a company to come in and repair a roof in a building, and they have an accident, who is responsible for that scenario? Is that the landlord's responsibility, or is that the tenant's responsibility?
This is really grey. This is really great, because the landlord, of course, is his responsibility. If he has his subcontractor, and depending on who is injured in this scenario, if it's his contractor that is injured or their staff that is injured, then of course the landlord's responsibility, because he employed the people to do the job. If it's the farm people's injuries, then the farmer has a responsibility as well, because knowing that the roof is unsafe and somebody's repairing, and he shouldn't send anybody anywhere near there to work on the roof if he knows something is unsafe. So it's a bit, you know, great, depending on the whole scenario, really.
Okay, thank you, Rosalind. That question was from Christine Grange. I fear my bad chairmanship has meant we've run out of time for the further questions. We'll try and get them answered independently and put them up on our website.
Just a moment. If anybody wants a full answer, I will pass it on to my expert, and I will send it down to you, if that's okay.
Excellent. That's good, Rosalind. Thanks for that. Okay, so with big thanks to Rosalind and to Stephanie, I'm going to hand over now for the last 5 minutes to the TFA's Farm Policy Advisor, Lynette Steele, who's going to give us some pointers to think about over the football and also to conclude our proceedings tonight. So Lynette, the floor is yours.
Thanks very much, George, and thank you to Rosalind and Stephanie for a fantastic presentation this evening. Really insightful and lots to think about. So these are our 5 top tips for you all to take away and think about this evening during the football and also tomorrow. So hopefully these are things you can implement which can help with health and safety on farm. First of all, take a walk around your yard. You take a walk around your yard every day, I'm sure, and make a mental note of any potential risks that you have. Those overhead power lines, those unhung shed doors. You can even go as far as writing them down into a risk assessment. The cost of that project is really just your time. And like I say, you're walking around your yard every day. The second top tip I've got is make safety part of your discussions with your family around the breakfast table, with any workers you have on the farm, including those contractors which are coming onto your holding, and discuss with them any points of risk that they've identified and any concerns they have. The cost of that, probably a cup of tea and a pack of hobnobs. The third top tip is to fit a RAM type phone mount into vehicles to remove the temptation of using those mobile phones while driving. We're coming into harvest, people are buzzing up and down the roads, it's a busy time of year. Most vehicles, including tractors, now have Bluetooth, but what do you do with your phone? And it's very easy to just look at a message that's received while you're driving. So having a hands-free phone mount is really handy. They cost about £25 on Amazon. Other retailers obviously are available, and their fit time is less than 15 minutes. Number 4, buy high vis. It's so cheap and it's so easy to wear around the yard. And don't forget about the children on the holding as well. George has that terrible story of a member who rang in saying he didn't even know his child was there. I'm not saying that the high vis would have saved that child's life, but it could have helped. And for the price of less than £10 for a high vis vest, it's really just getting in the habit of putting it on when you and your family members and your workers go out into the farmyard. And number 5, just to reinforce what Stephanie said, please download What Free Words app. It's a free to download app on your phone. I appreciate not everybody has a smartphone, but for those of you that do. But the next key step to downloading the What Free Words app is actually sit down and ensure that you familiarise yourself with how to use the app and that it's actually working on your phone. So when an incident happens, it's there and it's ready to use. So that's my top 5 tips. I'm hoping that everybody's going to go away and use them and think about them tomorrow. So just as a summary, again, thanks to Stephanie and Rosalind for a fantastic presentation this evening, and our event sponsor, Barclays. The webinar will be available in a few days' time on our YouTube channel once it's all edited and we've got those videos in there. So you can review it again, or maybe show it to some of your employees, other family members which haven't been available this evening to join in our webinar. And finally, really, a thanks to you guys for attending this evening. I know health and safety isn't the most exciting subject, but as the statistics show, it's something that we've all got a responsibility to improve in our industry and on our own farms. So just a plug for the next webinar is actually, again, later in this month. It's Tuesday, the 27th of July. It's a meeting with Janet Hughes from DEFRA, who's heading up the Future Farm Policy. And we're really going to delve into where we are with the Future Farm Policy and what that means for you on your farm. There'll be plenty of opportunity to ask Janet questions, and I'm really hoping that members will be able to attend and really get across the views of the tenant farmers in this webinar. Registrations are now open and it starts at 7 p.m. again. So thank you very much for attending, everyone. And yeah, any more questions you have, you know where we are at the TFA head office. Thank you very much.